I'm your host, Donna Cates, and each week we'll dive into powerful stories, expert strategies, and practical tools to help you take charge of your financial future. Whether you're planning for retirement, navigating a divorce, or simply looking to build your wealth with confidence, this is your space to grow, learn, and thrive. Let's get started with today's podcast. I'm really excited to introduce you to CJ Nord today. She is the founder of Supply Chains for Good. And I'm really eager, CJ, to delve deeper into your career journey and learn about why it is you're doing what you're doing today. So, so give us about a 90-second overview of what you are doing and why you got into it.
Okay, well, the mission of Supply Chains for Good is the protection of children and family prosperity. And I use the skills and grit of supply chain to get that done. Supply chain is the science of systems, and it's often overlooked as the solution for a lot of our systemic problems. And I find when I use this methodology to solve large scale problems, such as my focus on creating the circular supply chain and giving, as I say, the high school kid and the hard luck kid a chance to learn supply chain before they leave high school. Um, those are my two biggest focuses, and certainly the work with the kids is both are really rewarding, but I love working with the kids. Love it. I got into this. I created Supply Chains for Good after surviving breast cancer. And through my career in supply chain, which spanned about 30 years in manufacturing, I had seen multiple times where I had used just my skills as a supply chain manager, the same kind of logic I would employ at work to prevent major supply chain disruptions and to protect often the industry that I worked for, which is woodworking and furniture primarily. So
Wow.
that's how I got to here. I established Supply Chains for Good in 2019.
Okay, awesome. So, and tell me, yeah, as you were experiencing breast cancer, what was that pivot for you where you said, "Ooh, I really need to do something different"?
Mm. I think many of us encounter something that that wakes us up
Mm,
about what life is all about, and it's not about becoming a billionaire,
mm,
and it's honestly not about making money for other people either. What is that money for? Um, so it was an awakening to there's a purpose in life that is far grander than I was going to find in anybody else's workplace,
mm, mm.
and that to do the things that I wanted to do, um, I was going to have to um, not be restricted by anybody else. Nobody else shared my commitment um, to my unusual mission. Nobody else shared my vision about how that was going to be accomplished. And I realized that if I tried to do this under anybody else's umbrella, it would not be done as well. Um, so we
That's
all want to
awesome.
make a big difference, right?
Well, and that I think, yeah, I want to applaud you for stepping out and taking action because so many of us, I find, we just kind of get stuck. We say, okay, it's not just the glass ceiling; it's like other people not buying into what we want to be able to achieve, and they're getting in our way, and we let that happen. So good
Mm.
for you for saying, nope, nobody's getting in my way. I'm going to step out and make this happen. That's awesome.
You
Well,
know, I was just going to say, I love what you said there, Donna, because when you're not on your own, when you're not on your own, people will come. Well, either way, people will tell you that what you want to accomplish is impossible, right? And they're going to say that with a degree of authority, and they may even tell you why it's impossible. When it's your boss or your coworkers or the owner of the company telling you that, you have to stop what you're doing or you're going to lose your job, right? If it's your own business and somebody tells you impossible, you're like, well, let me just prove you wrong.
The challenge, right?
Right, right. Yeah, it's not. It's so when somebody says impossible, I just internally I'm thinking challenge accepted.
Absolutely. And a lot of times that gives us the kick in the hiney that we need to just show them, right?
It can be used like that. Yeah, it can be
Awesome.
fuel. Yeah.
Well, talk to me about what you see as the biggest problem in your industry now and what you're doing differently to solve for that.
The so I would call my industry supply chain. That's my field, my industry. Um, I think the biggest problem in the supply chain field is that we don't understand our role in humanity. So
Mm,
I'll give you the comparison that I always use is a doctor, a nurse, anybody involved in the medical profession. They have guiding principles that no matter what situation, let's say a doctor is in, if that doctor's in a boardroom and somebody is trying to make them do something that is outside of their guiding principles, the doctor with full moral authority says, nope, I'm not. And everybody else at that table respects that.
mhm,
We in the supply chain field are tasked with the protection of children and family prosperity. We have a greater role in the human family than we recognize. And I think if I can make any difference in the world that would last far beyond when I'm gone, it would be to get the profession to understand that we're holding back. We're holding back when we don't recognize our role in humanity. And a friend of mine describes that as being the moral compass of trade. I call it being the keeper of balance. Uh,
mm,
and it, one of the things that I'm working on is a book titled The Heart of Supply Chain, where I wish to be able to convey this to other supply chain professionals. And I'll use examples of how I've used supply chain to drive societal level changes in laws, in what I'm doing now for circularity, and to, I hope to open their eyes to really their own power.
mhm. Well, and what I find interesting, not being in your industry, working in that supply chain, I'm curious, do you find that, most people just aren't giving it this much thought? They're just like showing up like, this is just a job, this is just what I do. And they're not actually putting that moral compass behind the conversation.
I would say that that's true for more than 70% of the people in the field.
Hmm.
Um, the remaining 30%, for them, I think for the most part, it manifests in their head as I need to do my job right or my coworkers will suffer.
Mm-hmm.
So in manufacturing, that's a very real threat. If
Hmm.
you run out of a part, and that part could be as small as a washer that doesn't even cost a penny a piece, your factory can be shut down and all of those employees will go home without a full day's pay.
Hmm.
So, in that way, we have an early introduction to our importance to family prosperity. Right? We directly contribute to the prosperity of those everyday families. And what I've done is expand on that. And Donna, when I've sat on panel discussions with my colleagues, people in the supply chain profession, and when I've expressed this, that we have something greater to give humanity than we really realize. I've had people at very high levels turn to me and say, I've always thought that, and I've never heard anybody else say it.
Mm,
It means a lot to me.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
and it's in, I mean, it sounds like it's something that needs to be at the front of every conversation. It's
It,
just it's
it
not.
does.
So
And it
that's
will just, yes, yes, I beg your pardon for interrupting you.
oh no.
It will, now here's the trick. It will actually drive the best results. The path, keeping on the path of purpose will lead you to the most lucrative results.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
I, I swear by that.
Hmm.
And my circularity program is a perfect example of that. I set out to design, the circular supply chain, just briefly. What we mean by circular supply chain is essentially nothing goes into the landfill.
Mm, okay.
Everything, there's no trash anymore. It's all manufacturing material, right? And so I know that if we address the challenge of creating the circular supply chain on the industrial manufacturing level, that we can complete this probably inside of a decade for many
Mm,
industries, if it's industry led, right? We can really get that done. So about a year ago, I partnered with one of the leading trade associations within the woodworking industry, which is the Association of Woodworking and Furnishing Suppliers. And I said, hey, why don't you give me a chance? I'm trying to figure this out, what we can do with all this composite wood waste.
mhm,
And they said, all right, yeah, we'll give you a chance. Here's a little bit of money, right? And just kind of a stipend. And we set out to figure it out. What can we do with this composite wood that's got glue and plastic and it's in some nasties in it, right?
mhm, mhm.
How can we turn, my program is called There's Cash in That Trash. How
Oh,
can we turn that trash into cash? Well, my friend, turns out we can turn that trash into electricity to
mm,
power the same factory that produced the waste.
wow.
It's a wow. I'll never get over being surprised by that.
Wow. That's so huge.
It's
And
huge.
it's right, right. So and
It's
if
huge.
that's happening at this level up here at the industry level, the trickle down effect is just going to be empowering. I mean, for even at the family level, just basic recycling and stuff, right?
It really will. It really you really put that perfectly. So to give you an example, I'm trying to build profit-driven circularity, right? Driven by trade, not taxes. Something
Mm,
that doesn't need government incentives because the math flat out works, right? And the best example that we have of that we often overlook is the metals industry.
mm-hmm,
Metal is one of the oldest profit-driven circular supply chains in the world. It's kind of been built like that from day one, right?
mm-hmm,
Metal always required that you recycle the scrap back into it. And when my father was a steel worker, and he used to tell me stories about, yeah, people just drop off their old bikes, whatever it is, we throw it in the smelter and we make new steel out of it.
mm-hmm,
We're building something like that for woodworking. That would mean that, let's say you're sick and tired of your old dining room set, or you did a closet remodel and now you're getting rid of those shelves. You could put them out on your sidewalk and have somebody pick them up because the scrap value is so high that it makes sense for them to do the work to take it from point A to point B. And when you're taking something from point A to point B to make a profit at point B, my friend, you have built yourself a supply chain.
How
Mhm.
fascinating. And that's, yeah, and I can only imagine that discovering that you can do this in a totally different area in the woodworks. How many other industries might have the same ability?
I hope very much to
Right.
inspire into
Mhm,
industries for this.
mhm,
The key to this is to shift an entire industry through a collaborative effort, because a
Mm-hmm.
supply chain is many partners. We're trying to build a supply chain. Um, and currently, society is actually going at this from really the wrong angle. They're they're saying they're expecting single companies to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm,
It's too
that's not
busy.
going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, it's too big. It took me a year of really some pretty hard work to get to this point, and it involved talking to elected officials. It involved getting science looked into. An individual company. Who do they have on staff that's going to do that?
Mm-hmm.
There, if when I first started doing this research, the first return on investment calculation for the equipment for this solution showed an 18-year return on investment. We've got it down to less than 4 now. I think I'm going to hit 2 in this.
Wow.
But if I had gone to my boss and said, "Hey, boss, well, the first investigation was an 18-year ROI," he goes, "Stop fooling around with this, CJ, and go back to your job."
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't. It would stop right there. We're building something where, for example, the industry can collaborate together. So instead of wood waste being hauled outside of the metropolitan area where the factories are, the wood waste can just go to the nearby woodworker. Now we've cut that trip for the waste down from maybe 30 to 50 miles to less than 5.
Efficiencies.
Oh, it's a huge efficiency gain. And again, it's that, I was very stubborn about, no, this is the purpose, this is the higher purpose. We got to stay on this path. We can't compromise. And that led me to the most money.
I love it.
Okay. Yeah, isn't that crazy? How
Mm-hmm.
about that?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, you're leading the way, so I know our listeners are going to glean a lot from that. Let me shift gears a little bit and ask you this. What's been the biggest challenge that you face thus far in this point in your life, whether that's personally or professionally, and how has that shaped how you're doing business today?
I think the biggest challenge that I've faced in the past, personally and professionally, um, is, as I put it, I'm a round peg in a world of square holes.
Hmm.
I just really don't fit.
Hmm.
Over time, I realized that I am exactly who I'm supposed to be, and that really embracing that is where I found my power. And then now, instead of people saying, "Boy, that's really strange, CJ," now you got some success under your belt. You're getting comments like, "This is impossible without you. You're the unicorn we need." Remember, it went from impossible to "you're the unicorn we need" inside of a year.
Mm.
And I'm Little Miss Impossible, uh, and I'll continue to battle that for the rest of my days. Uh,
And that is,
um,
yeah, we could make it a negative. We could say, yeah, you're that round thing trying to fit in this little thing or whatever, and ooh, you got to fix that. But no,
yeah,
it's your strength. So
right.
awesome. Hmm.
Stop trying to whittle yourself down.
Right. Ooh, I love that too. Right. We don't have to fit. Right.
No, we don't.
We don't
And
have.
when we open our own companies, we don't have to fit at all,
Right.
right?
That's right.
Now,
We make all the new boxes, circles, squares, triangles, whatever we want them to be. That's awesome. I love it. I love it. All right, here's another question for you. Always curious to hear people's response to this. If you could have lunch with one person, living or deceased, who would you choose to have that lunch with and why?
Eisenhower.
Yeah.
And So I'll give you a little bit of background. The way that I got my head around the solution, the circularity solution that I've come up with, and this is going to sound really strange. I imagine myself as the supply chain manager for planet Earth.
Okay.
Oh, the audacity, right?
Hmm.
That's like a too big for her britches statement, right? It's actually the application of one of Eisenhower's principles that if he couldn't solve a problem, he made it bigger and made it bigger
Mm.
and made it bigger. And when he got far enough above it, he could see his way to a solution. So if you want to solve the world problems, think like a world leader, right? And I would love to sit down with him and talk to him about what I'd like to achieve, get his advice on it.
Hmm.
That'd be incredible.
And the ability to not try to solve the problem here, but to make it bigger and bigger and bigger until you're seeing the whole thing.
Yes.
That's
'Cause
huge.
most of the time when we can't solve a problem, it's because we're just thinking too small,
Right. Mm.
right? And then people get they hit that impossible word when they're trying to make it bigger, right? And they often stop and back down and then fit into fit into the hole that they think they're supposed to fit into.
Mm. Got it.
But Eisenhower didn't. Churchill didn't. Right? They powered through.
The world leaders, like you said.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Want to solve the world problems? Think like a world leader.
That's awesome. So I would love for you to expound a bit on who your clients are and how, how people can reach out to you if they want to work with you or connect with you. Tell me what that might
Mm.
look like.
Well, first, my website is supplychainsforgood.org. You can find me on LinkedIn. There's a Supply Chains for Good page, or connect with me directly on LinkedIn. I would love to hear from people, and love to be of service to people. I'm sorry, what was the other half of that question?
Oh, that was just
I got distracted.
how the how you could they could reach out to you and who specifically it is that would be
Oh,
the ideal client for you.
thank you, thank you.
You're welcome.
Um, so, my ideal client is kind of an odd mix, and this is a lot of times people reach out to me on LinkedIn and say, "Hey, we can get you a whole bunch of more leads." No, you can't. So I have primarily two types of client. One is the trade association focusing on manufacturing, and the other is schools. So the two aspects of my business that earn are the circularity program. I would like to get a total of at least four trade associations within the woodworking industry on board to build this collaboration to really get uh, wood circularity completed.
Mm,
Today in the United States, only 5% of wood is recycled.
mm,
Metal is 50%. We could fix that.
mhm,
We could fix that inside of 10 years. The other is spending so much time on the leadership level of the supply chain field. I'm a past president of the Institute for Supply Management Los Angeles. I've just been, these are my people,
mm,
really deeply involved in it, in the education for many, many years. And one of the things that I've noticed is that we really didn't have anything for the high school kid.
mm,
It's only been in the last 10 years that it's been widely available at the college level. Supply chain education was initially developed by the leading working professionals for working professionals.
mm,
And it's structured and worded in a way that only people from the field can understand.
mm.
Too hard,
Right.
too wordy, too many, it's just very difficult to grasp.
The
Um,
layman's not going to get it. So somebody without
right.
that education or experience, it would be meaningless.
Right, right, right. And as I mentioned earlier, I love hanging out with the kids. And so for many years, long before I established Supply Chain for Good, I volunteered to go into the high school classroom on career days and talk to
Mhm.
kids about careers in supply chain, careers in manufacturing. And as you can tell, I love supply chain, and I explain it in a way that makes people want to come on board. And these kids would go, "Wow, that's great, Miss Nord. Where can we learn about supply chain?" And I would be like, "I got nothing for you, kid." I just felt like I teed them up. I teed them up for this great career, and then I just dropped them, right?
Mm.
So I sought to solve that problem and make sure that it was top quality supply chain education, and that's not easy to obtain. That top quality beginners level education was available at the high school level. And I have achieved that on a small scale and am trying to expand it. But presently, my beginners level supply chain program, which is a partnership with VCare Academy, is taught out of Coastline ROP to 4 Orange County school districts.
Wow.
So that's been out there for a little over a year. And now oh my goodness, I love every kid in that program. I don't teach them. A teacher teaches them. I
Right.
felt it was really critical to make sure that your public school teacher can teach this course, and they can, and that it's guided in such a way that when the student graduates, they're ready for college, or maybe they're ready for career. And I honestly think at the end of my program that a student can go into the beginner's level of a supply chain career and do. I wouldn't be surprised if they do better than some of the adults who haven't had the benefit of the education.
Wow, that is you're changing the world, and that's fabulous. And
I
I'm
hope
going
so.
to encourage everybody to reach out because I'm hearing that you're very well established in your area, in your regional area, right? We need to
Yeah,
get that expanded out into the rest of the U.S. and
we do.
yeah.
Every high school kid in the United States should have an opportunity, at least an opportunity, to
Mhm.
learn supply chain before they graduate. And look, these ROP centers and the career and technical education centers, it's like they're teaching everything else. They're teaching dental technician, they're
Mhm.
teaching EMT. Those are jobs where across the United States, okay, maybe there are hundreds of thousands of people in those positions. The supply chain field employs a third of the United States workforce.
Wow, that's huge.
It's it's 44 million people,
Wow.
and schools are completely missing this opportunity. And even if the definition of supply chain is every step in the process of getting a product or a service to the customer. So there's really not a business that doesn't have a supply chain,
It's not touching that, right?
and
Absolutely.
we're not teaching it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a gap.
Well, this has been very enlightening, and I really do. I want to put a call out to the women because I know we have women from all over, and with all different types of specialties, but especially our school superintendents,
Oh,
career
please, I would.
coaches. Yeah,
Yeah,
ladies, y'all get on the horn and let's see what we can make happen there.
that would be great.
That's awesome. Well, I certainly appreciate you being on the show with us today, CJ, and I look forward to helping you grow that throughout the U.S.
Thank you.
I hope today's conversation left you feeling inspired, informed, and ready to take the next step in your financial journey. Remember, building wealth isn't just about money, it's also about creating a life that aligns with your goals and values. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with the women in your life who deserve financial empowerment too. Until next time, stay confident, stay empowered, and keep building the life you desire.